Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Can you all see my screen? I think you can. Yeah. So I had my bachelor's degree in Nigeria, and I completed my MPhil here at the University of Cambridge, and after which I have been working as a research assistant. Then recently resumed for my PhD here at the University of Cambridge. So basically, I won't just for this position. So for my undergraduate degree, I learned, like the bachelor's degree, the course I studied, I learned some insights about the course, and I had some interest while learning. And during the process of studying, I also volunteered for some interesting positions in the school. So this sort of sorry, can you control the audio? Okay. So please let's try to stay muted. And yeah, if you have any question, you can ask, you can jot them down now, and I'm happy to take as many questions as you have after this short presentation. So during my undergraduate degree, the process started like towards applying for a scholarship or applying for a funded position, studentship grants. The process started. So it wasn't like it's after I graduated or after I finished my bachelor's degree that I actually started working towards it. Then after my undergraduate degree, I did an internship, I had work experience. I also continued volunteering. Then I had 1 or 2 publications. I will explain further on this as this talk goes on. Then I got a scholarship in 2020. So my master's was on a scholarship from the University of Cambridge. Then for my PhD, it's actually on a grant, so it's not a scholarship. So I think I'm in a good position to actually share some insightful opinions on this topic, because scholarship, I've won a scholarship before, then grants, I also secured a grant for my PhD. So for scholarship, so I think this particular audience, like you have a kind of good knowledge of what a scholarship is about, or you must have seen 1 or 2 things about applying for scholarships. It's just like applying for funded positions whereby your tuition, your living allowances, everything will be covered by the awarding body. There are different kinds of scholarships. But if you are still an undergraduate, please, you can start making some moves now by working harder on your CGPA, because they want to see the ability in you that you are technically competent, you have the knowledge, you have the skill set to study on a subject at an advanced level, such as a master's or PhD. And one of the evidence they would use to check this is your CGPA. So I don't need to even say much about this aspect, because we all know about this. Then the financial need, there must be a financial need on your part. You don't just apply and get a scholarship because you are deserving. A lot of people are deserving because they have high CGPA. But what is the financial need on your part? Most of these scholarships, they will say they are keen on awarding their positions to financially disadvantaged students or students from background or family that they are struggling. So they want to see these things. And how do you demonstrate this? You don't demonstrate it by saying, well, you don't eat regularly, you are from a poor family, or things are very hard. But it's how you shape your story, critically reflecting on your experience. And I'm sure a majority of us on this call, we have this experience that clearly states that we had struggles with our finances from our family, with our tuition. If during your undergraduate studies or your bachelor studies, you had some kind of experiences, some people, and being in reality now, some people lost one of their parents early in their childhood, and being raised by a single parent, like a single mom or a dad, sort of shows that it's one of an evidence that you can put forward, like it was difficult getting the financial support for your studies. Why some you have your parents, you still have your parents, but some of them lost their jobs, especially at difficult times during the COVID situation. So these are stories. Your story is different from mine. So these are stories you can put forward, demonstrating your financial need. Then geographic boundaries. Most of these scholarships, they are usually for, like some of them are usually for students from developing countries. They will say, for instance, MasterCard Foundation Scholarship now, it's particularly stated on the website that the welcome applications, or to be eligible for the scholarship, you have to be from a developing country, mostly Africa, and you must be a resident in Africa. So this is saying in real terms that these scholarships are for you, being from this part of the world. Then what is your field of interest? Some scholarships are for some particular field of interest. If you study banking and finance or accounting, and I studied microbiology, we can't apply, we may not be able to apply for the same set of scholarships because the field of interest that the scholarships focus on are quite different. The one aspect you need to focus on is volunteering. They also want to look at how committed are you to making a positive difference in the life of others? What have you given back to your community? It's very important. Then publications. Some people will say publications is not compulsory, but I will say it's important. Though it's not compulsory, but it sort of gives you an edge. And I will say more on that when it comes to applying for funded positions, studentships, or grants. Now, scholarships are quite different from grants. Another name grants is call it grants. You are not the one applying for the grant, but you're applying for a studentship under that particular grant. So the first background information you need if you have decided to apply for scholarships, and to get these documents, it takes time. Sometimes it will take you 6 to 12 months to get them. So if you are planning on applying from next year, you should start thinking about them now. You need your international passports, even though you're not traveling next month or next 2 months. Even if you're applying for positions now and you intend to secure one and travel next year, most applications you're submitting, they will have your passport number. So this is just a reminder that if you're a resident in Africa and you don't have your international passport, you need to get it now. You need the degree certificates of all your studies. What are the studies you've done? You had a bachelor's degree, you had a master's degree, you need the degree certificates. Then you need the transcripts correctly showing all the courses you took and the grades you had in each of them. And funny enough, some of us think that they just request for this for document sake and we just upload. No. The scholarship awarding bodies or the institutions themselves, they particularly look at the grades you have in each of these courses. If you're applying for an MSc in infectious diseases and you studied microbiology, they want to see what you had in pathogenicity. They want to see what you had in virology. They want to see what you had in immunology. These are core courses that builds a strong foundation to what you will do in your MSc in infectious diseases. So that's just an example one. They will be able to see all of this in your transcripts. The improve of language proficiency, it's not required by all institutions or scholarships, but some of them, they particularly need them. For instance, Erasmus Mundus joint master's degree, like this European scholarship, they don't need proof of language proficiency. But if you're applying for scholarships in some institutions in the UK, they will ask for that. Some schools in the US ask for that. Then very few schools in Canada ask for that. So you need to look at the scholarships you're applying for and see if they require you to submit or to take an English language test or not. So please, can we all just stay muted? And if you have any questions, just jot them down. I'm happy to take all the questions you have. So you need your statement of purpose. This is very, very tricky and extremely important. Some call it personal statement or letter of intent or whatever you need them. Then you need recommendation letters. So your recommendation letters are submitted by your referees. Okay, let me just. Yeah, so your recommendation letters are to be submitted by your referees. So while applying, you need to inform your referees, and this could be your lecturers, those who have taught you one course or the other. So you need to inform them, and then they must be in a better position to comment on your be what would fit your own situation. Is most definitely studentship or grant. So I will still explain that in the in subsequent slides. So what are the application steps? You want to apply for scholarships. There are some, there are essential things you would need to do, we all need to do. And like I said, it doesn't just work. It's not just like you saw the link somewhere and you just click on it and say, okay, you're applying. No. The first thing to do is when you've learned about a particular scholarship, you need to make careful research about it. You need to carefully read the program website or the institution's website. Study the eligibility, study the criteria, the requirements, the deadlines, and everything that is needed. How many letters of recommendation do they need? Or what kind of personal statements are they looking for? What do they expect your referees to write? You need to jot these things down. And these are some of the very, very, so people will say they are not so important, but these are some things we don't pay careful attention to, and it costs a lot. Because if I'm applying for Chevening scholarship, for an example, and I don't have a good or relevant 2 years work experience, I'm just wasting my time, because it's clearly emphasized on the Chevening website that you need 2 years work experience before you could apply for that. So if I haven't studied that, I won't be able to put in a very good or a competitive application. So you need to study the specific requirements. Then when you study them, you could see 10 or 12 scholarships advertised, and when you make careful readings about this eligibility criteria and all those things, then you now filter and select. It's from there that you know that, okay, you can't apply for Commonwealth because of their kind of requirements. Or if you don't plan to return back to your home country, as an example, then Commonwealth might not be a particularly excellent fit for you, because for Commonwealth scholars, after your studies, you need to travel back to your home country as if you're from developing countries. So you need to filter and select that and make notes of the ones you're applying for. There is no limit to the number of scholarships you can apply for. You can apply for as many as 30, 50, 100. But note that applying for one scholarship takes a great deal of effort. If you're applying for a scholarship and you are asked to submit 3 references, so imagine putting a call through your referees, discussing your application and your plans for them, and they have to go online, write a strong recommendation letter for you, only for you now to have made a mistake of not checking the particular criteria of the scholarship, and it's not a good fit for you, and you just waste, not only have you wasted your time applying, but you've also wasted your referee's time applying. So it's important that you filter out the particularly good ones, or the ones that are fit for you and for the scholarship itself. So after you've done that, then prepare your documents. Like I have listed those documents. You need to prepare them. You need to sit down carefully and prepare your academic CV. Then your statement of purpose. You don't want to submit a generic statement of purpose for 4 or 5 scholarships. No, each of them must be designed to the particular scholarship you're applying for. Very, very important. So once you've prepared your document, and make sure none is missing, because a missing document is as good as an invalid application. And an invalid application is just a waste of time, because it won't even be considered in most cases. After which, you follow up with your referees. So once you prepare your documents and you've applied, then you also need to follow up with your referees. Now, reading the requirements enables you to know what kind of formats your recommenders are asked to submit on your behalf. Some, it's after you have submitted that your referees will be asked to submit, while some your referees have to submit even before you submit. So you have to follow up with this as well. You don't just want to submit and only to find out that after the deadline, your referees haven't really submitted the references. And sometimes you might have paid application fees for these applications, and that could be costly. So just for emphasis sake, these are some of the scholarships. There are lots of them, so I just listed these few ones. Gates Cambridge Scholarship for the University of Cambridge, Rhodes Scholarship, MasterCard, Commonwealth, Fulbright, and Shevlin Scholarship. I will just say one or two things about one or two of them. So Gates Cambridge Scholarship is it's an extremely competitive scholarship. Like it's particularly focused on future leaders who have extremely high potential, leadership potential, who's you having these strong abilities and strong profile in terms of your commitments, in terms of your education, in terms of your fit for the program. So, and the particular course, and it's only tenable at the University of Cambridge. So if you're applying for Gates Cambridge Scholarship, that means you're applying for admission at the University of Cambridge, and you are also following up with the scholarship. So then the Rhodes Scholarship, mostly, if I'm right, I think that one is at the University of Oxford. And there is age limit for Rhodes Scholarship. So if you are 29, you can't apply for Rhodes Scholarship. If you are 27, you can't apply. There is a limit, and I think that should be 24, if I'm right or wrong. But yeah, so carefully reading through them is very important. Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree, it has to do with different catalogs. So if I studied microbiology and you studied environmental science, or for instance, you studied law, both of us could be applying for Erasmus Mundus Joint Master's Degree Scholarship, but we won't be applying for the same program because there are different programs for this scholarship. So carefully reading through these scholarship awarding bodies, their websites, and the schools at which the scholarship is tenable at, it's very important. It enables you to work specifically for the one you want to apply for. And interestingly, MasterCard Foundation Scholarship has just launched a new program at the University of Cambridge. MasterCard Foundation Scholarship wasn't really, they weren't offering scholarships for applicants at the University of Cambridge, but starting from, I think, was it last year or this year, they started an initiative and to take, is it 5 or 10 students at the University of Cambridge annually. So the first set of scholars that won it, they resumed at Cambridge, and so they've announced the next round of applications. So, reading through this, MasterCard Foundation Scholarship is also tenable at the University of British Columbia, also at McGill University, also at Edinburgh. Reading through these scholarships, reading through their requirements and the institutions at which they are tenable. This takes a lot of time and effort, but it's just one of the most important things we need to pay attention to. So scholarship isn't particularly restricted for a particular project. How do I put it? So if you're interested in studying immune response in people living with HIV, or you are just interested in studying infectious diseases, or you're interested in studying corporate law or finance law or environmental science or political science or natural history, you could apply for almost all the scholarships I listed in the previous slide. But if you want to apply for studentship, now they are quite specific. You can't really apply for all studentships. It has to do with which one is a fit for you. It has to do with which one perfectly describes what you want to do. So for grants and studentships, there are some particular things we need to pay attention to. The first thing is that when applying for grants and studentship, you need to mail supervisors, because it's not just called, it won't just be advertised as a particular kind of scholarship, but it will be advertised as a kind of project. So a supervisor might say he or she needs 2 students, 1 master's student and 1 PhD student, to work on certain projects. So how is that project a good fit for you? What are you looking for in that project? How will you contribute to that project? These are what you need to think about when contacting the supervisors. And I've just listed some few countries here about contacting supervisors, and their methods are kind of different. Again, I won't be able to dig too much into this because of time constraints, but I'm happy to answer your questions. If you're applying from developing countries or from anywhere in the world as an international student to carry out your master's degree in Canada, you must contact a supervisor in all sense. It's very rare for me to have seen a case whereby you don't need to have secured a supervisor if you're applying for your master's degree, most especially in biological sciences and in most other fields as well. You should, in fact, in the school's website, it will be stated that you need to identify a supervisor you want to work with, and you should contact them in Canada. Also in Asia, in most cases in Asia, you need to contact them. So one thing is, it's either the project is advertised as a studentship, or there is no project advertised as a studentship, but the supervisor just says he or she is interested in taking students for next fall or for next admission period. So either way, you should contact them. I mean, it's essential that you contact these supervisors in Canada, in Asia. But if you want to work on a research project in USA, in most cases, like 50 or 60% of the cases, or even 70%, you don't need to secure a supervisor, because in the program, you would do what is called like a rotation aspect, whereby you are able to work in 2 or 3 laboratories, you take some coursework. So it's after your first or second year that the graduate committee will now decide the best project fits or the project match for you. So in USA, it's not so compulsory you contact a supervisor. While in UK, you should contact a supervisor. So let me just be clear on that. The project could be advertised as a studentship. So if it's advertised as a studentship, it now depends on the requirements. At the end of the adverts, they could write that applicants are encouraged to contact the leading supervisor for an informal inquiry or for an informal chat to get a better understanding of the project and the supervisor's needs, and to see if you are a good fit for the project. So in all sense, if you're interested in carrying out a master's study by research, or you want to do a PhD, once you've decided on the country, you should contact supervisors if you are planning to apply in Canada, in most Asian countries, in most cases in UK, but in USA, not so compulsory, but just very few schools require you to do that. Then before you mail these supervisors, you must have a research interest. You must know what you're interested in. You can't just contact a supervisor and say you want to do a master's degree or a master's research in their laboratory. So what is interesting to you about what they're doing? What is sort of pushing your motivation to carry out a research in their lab? You alone can answer that question, and you must have a very convincing answer to that. Because as a supervisor, if a supervisor is taking 2 students for next fall, and most of them taking students, they have the funding already. So if they are taking 2 students and 30 to 50 students are contacting them, so what makes you stand out from the other 30 or 50 students? That has to do with your research interest. And in some cases, they might ask you to develop a proposal. So how would you carry out this project? What are your aims and objectives? In most cases in scholarship applications, you don't need a research proposal, but for grants or studentships, you would most certainly need one. And the strength and the motivation for this has to come from you. So if it's not coming from you, then they will feel like, okay, you're not motivated enough to carry out a research in their laboratory. So what are the application steps? Quite different from scholarship. It's almost similar, but this just has some extra details to it. The first thing to do is to check for advertised projects. If you look at some websites like findaphd.com, they usually advertise projects. They usually advertise projects there. And then this is application period. So if you click on findaphd.com, that's if you're applying for a PhD, and you do a good filter according to your field and the country you want to study in, you will see some advertised projects. Some will say they're working on antifungal trials, or some will say they're working on recurrence of cervical cancer, and it will be perfectly described just like in an A4 page. So you have to read through this project, you check for all the projects, look at the topic. Once you see that the topic is something that is interesting to you, not only interesting, but it also fits with what you've done in your undergraduate, then you need to read each description of the project, like reading the description of each advertised project. So it's after you have read the project description that you could now decide, or you could now re-examine if the project is a good fit for you, if it's sort of interesting to you. So for instance, when I, after my undergraduate degree, while working in an HIV and tuberculosis clinic in Lagos, Nigeria, I was applying for scholarships, but I was more interested in doing a master's by research. And if you want to do a master's by research, you definitely need to contact supervisors or apply for studentships or grants. So I usually read through different projects or check supervisor's profile and see which one is a fit for me. So, and I was interested in working on something that has to do with infectious diseases, either diagnosis, either treatment of infectious diseases. So if I see some things on food science or food microbiology, I'm not particularly motivated to apply for such because it's not something that is so interesting to me. So I usually do not spend quality time on those ones. But I spend quality time on projects that are interesting to me. Talk of some aspects of virology, supervisors working on HIV, supervisors working on human papillomavirus, supervisors working on polymyelitis or hepatitis or different sorry, or different kind of virus, or supervisors working on bacterial infections, tuberculosis, or sexually transmitted diseases. These are what interest me. These are what I'm particularly keen to do based on my undergraduate study and my work experience. So having checked that, I usually read through project descriptions under this topic. So then even if the projects interest you, you need to check again if it's the right one for you. Some projects are not really the right one for you based on the techniques involved, based on the approaches involved. You need to check that as well. So once you've made a decision on that, you need to contact the supervisor for an informal chat. It's not compulsory. Some will say you don't need to contact them, that you should just go ahead and apply. After which you prepare your documents, like I stated in the third or fourth slide. Then again, CV is very important because the supervisor himself or herself would read through your CV to see what are the kind of experience you have and the skill set you have. They are usually keen on the skills, on the technical abilities of candidates, not only on your knowledge, but on your, like, I'm talking about biological sciences now. What are the wet skills you have? Can you do computational biology? Can you do cell culture? Can you do DNA extraction? What are those skills? Or if you're applying for political sciences, what extra things did you do apart from your undergraduate degree? Did you travel for a 3-month internship period in a non-governmental organization? Have you been working with a body in your country or something like United Nations or something like your state government policy projects? And have you volunteered for something like that? Have you gained relevant experience or something like that? And have you identified a particular problem you will be able to solve in your master's or your PhD if you had this experience or these skills you've developed? So all these things will need to be in your CV, after which you can now apply. I would like to state again that while application steps or requirements for scholarships are quite straightforward, or for studentship or grants, they are specific for each project being advertised or for each supervisor that's advertising them. Interestingly, when you contact a supervisor for a studentship or grants that you want to apply, he or she would even request that they want to have a call with your referee. So there are some studentships like that they will say they want to have an interaction with your referees, 2 or 3 referees, and you'll be asked to submit the details. So they will ask questions from your referees or your supervisors in your previous degree about you, and this is what will make them to now decide if you should apply or if they're ready, if they're happy to take you. So it's quite different from scholarships requirements. So above all, for scholarships, for studentship or grants, what must be in your application documents or what must be in your application materials? You must consider these things. And people often make a mistake like, okay, because my friend won Commonwealth Shared Scholarship last year, I must apply for it as well. Not having a good reason. And if you don't have a good reason, you're unable to put down strong or convincing points in your application documents. So what is the motivation from your bachelor's degree to the next 5 or 10 years? What do you want to do after your bachelor's degree? You can ask yourself that question as you're on this call. What do you want to do after your bachelor's degree in the next 5 or 10 years? Even after your master's degree, what do you want to do? What are you still interested in finding out? What other question do you still want to ask? I would put, like, I would just give myself my own case study as an example. I had my bachelor's degree in microbiology where I sort of studied that, okay, infectious diseases are caused by microorganisms. I learned that, and I learned about bacteria, fungi, virus, and I learned about treatment. I learned how treatments can be difficult because of antibiotic resistance and these rising infections. Then even during my undergraduate, I volunteered with a foundation called Center for Gender Issues and Trust. I will still talk about volunteering in the next slide. So then I identified that there are some microorganisms that cause sexually transmitted diseases. Syphilis, HIV, hepatitis, or you talk of tuberculosis. I identified these microorganisms. I was being taught in class that these microorganisms causes these microorganisms are responsible for these infectious diseases. So while volunteering, I learned that there are a large number of teenagers in a particular city or a state in Nigeria that indulge in sexual activities. Some even have multiple sexual partners. And as such, there is rising cases of HIV and syphilis. So there is a motivation for my part that, okay, this is the microorganism causing it, and this is the bigger problem it is to the society. So in the nearest future, I want to work on improving diagnosis and treatment for these infectious diseases. So I'm linking what I've learned from the classroom to the future now, and that must be in my CV, that must be in my personal statement, and in the programs I'm applying for. Then I would also want to connect the graduate program and see how it fits into the bachelor's I had. So I haven't mentioned that in my bachelor's degree. So after my bachelor's degree, I had an internship and a very good work experience in an HIV and laboratory, in an HIV and tuberculosis clinic in Lagos, Nigeria. So I have learned from the classroom and I have learned from the society where I had my undergraduate degree. I was now working in a laboratory. So from the classroom to the real life experience, I was diagnosing people living with some diseases, syphilis, liver diseases or kidney diseases, hepatitis, or drug-resistant tuberculosis, or wound infections, and ear, nose, throat infections. So not only have I learned the microorganisms, I'm also seeing it as an experience that this is how they cause disease in different patients. And I'm also seeing the rising cases of these infectious diseases. So these things are going into my application, and I'm making a concrete story plan for myself and for whoever is reading my application. So the person is beginning to get convinced that, yes, this applicant really knows what he wants. Having read through my transcript, the courses I took, what I did, and how my work experience further elaborates on that. So the next question you should ask is why that particular lab, or why that particular principal investigator, that's PI or supervisor or scholarship, why that one, why not others? And oftentimes this is one of the critical questions that you will get in an interview, especially if you're applying for a master's or a PhD. Why this school? Why this scholarship? Why this laboratory? Why this project? Why do you think you are the best fit? Or why do you think this project is the best fit for you? Why don't you apply for other projects? So you must be able to provide relevant answers to that. When I was having my interview for my master's degree application at the University of Cambridge, I had to contact a supervisor first. Though I know I was applying for some scholarship, Cambridge Trust Scholarship and Gates Cambridge Scholarship, I had to contact the supervisor. And in one of our conversations, it was like, why do you want to work in my lab? Why do you want to do your master's degree in my laboratory? And so how can I provide answer to this question? So I made the research before that, and I've been working in a clinic, in a medical clinic in Lagos, Nigeria, and I'm seeing the cases of tuberculosis, HIV, human papillomavirus causing cervical precancer, women coming for screening tests, and I also made some further readings to identify that in Nigeria, there are just about 5 or 6 chemotherapy centers, that are centers where cancers are treated in Nigeria. So I've identified a huge gap that if people are not diagnosed on time, having access to treatment is very, very difficult, because in a population of 200 million people, you only have 5 or 6 functioning treatment centers as at then. So I've identified this, that this is a bigger problem to the society. So me answering the supervisor was interviewing me then, I had to mention that this is the case, and based on my work experience, this is why I want to apply to have my master's in your lab, and that early diagnosis is very key to fighting cervical cancer in Nigeria or in other African countries. So I've identified this as a problem, and what he's doing in his lab is working on early detection of cervical cancer, and this is why I want to do my master's degree in this laboratory. So that sort of paraphrase the question of why is laboratory. If I'm applying to a different lab, I need to provide a different answer that fits into the lab and fits into my own experience or my own credentials. Then the next, what are the research experience you have? You would, nowadays, you would definitely get this kind of question or this kind of essay prompts in your applications. And I understand that it's quite tricky getting this kind of experience, especially for those of us who are in settings where the resources are quite limited or the learning resources are limited. But this is one thing that most people do. After undergraduate degree, you don't just sit down and say, okay, during your undergraduate, you had no access to get better experience or get additional lab skills or get relevant skill sets. People go out there to work in institutes, apply for jobs, temporary jobs, but jobs that really fit into what you want to do. So if you're in if you studied law, for instance, now, and you feel you need to get additional knowledge or experience after your undergraduate degree, you could apply to law firms. That doesn't mean you aren't interested or you won't apply for scholarships anymore, but you are just applying there to do something like an internship or like a short term, 1 year, 6 months, 9 months employment program that will give you the experience that you need, that should give you an edge in your application. And for those of us in biological sciences, it's quite tricky because not only do we need the knowledge, we also need the soft skills, the skill sets, the wet lab skills. We also need them. They are very important. So what some of us do is we visit research labs or institutes and ask that we want to work for them. And some will say we don't have employment. They are not positions. They are not open positions yet. Some of us go as far as asking to volunteer, that we just want to work for free. The National Institute of Medical Research in Lagos, Nigeria, it's a very, very good one. In fact, there you even have to pay to work for free. So you could imagine that. And people are doing it. Young, brilliant graduates are going there to work for free and paying certain amounts to work there for 6 months. But trust me, the kind of skill sets you get in terms of cloning, plasmid analysis, DNA extraction, electrophoresis, and PCR that you will get in 6 months, it will be an incredible asset on your CV, on whatever application you're putting in. So consider this as well, the research experience and the work experience. Then there is a question that you must always get, no matter what program or field or area you're applying for. What are your long-term or short-term goals, and how will the program help you achieve these goals? Only you can answer that question yourself. But the way you answer it is also very important, because you may have an idea of what you want to say, but the way you put in your answer, your responses together will determine how convinced the awarding body or the supervisor will be. So you must have identified your short or long-term goals. Do you want to remain in academia? Do you want to do a master's and a PhD so you could be in academia and be studying more, be publishing papers, or be a lecturer? Or do you want to do your master's and PhD, or just master's only so you could go back to the industry, provide innovative solutions to what is lacking in your field or in your area of study? This is one of the bigger picture. how will this program you're applying for, how will they help you to achieve that? For instance, for Chevening Scholarship, you could get the question like, how will this program help you? And knowing fully well that after your 1 year study in the UK, that's for Chevening Scholarship, you have to return back to your home country and stay there for at least 2 years. So what will you be doing when you return back to your home country for 2 years? Will you return to the previous job you're doing or the previous place where you work? And what will you be bringing in to that employment based on what you've learned from the program or the course you've studied? It's a bigger picture question, and the way you answer it is also important. And I used to say this, very, very important. In whatever application you're doing, you have to sell yourself. Nobody will sell you the way you will sell yourself. You have to sell yourself as the best and the perfect candidate for that position. But in reality, make sure you don't shoot yourself. Don't overstate some certain things which you can't do, or some experience or skill sets which you don't have. They will definitely get to know, and that could be that could have a negative impact on your application. So you want to make sure that as far as you're selling yourself, you are also making sure that everything is modest. If you're applying for Gates Cambridge Scholarship, you need to state your leadership potentials in the real sense. During your 1 or 2 years after your undergraduate degree, you led a team of environmental scientists to create innovative solutions to environmental pollution in your community. And how did you do this? What approaches did you use? What support did you get? You are selling yourself that you are quite innovative and you're able to provide solutions to your environment, depending on whatever the problem is or whatever is being requested in your own way. Your CGPA could also be your selling point. You could state that in your faculty of over 400 or 500 students, you were the best graduating students and you got several awards after your studies. So it's just a matter of selling yourself in the particular way that fits the program, but make sure you don't shoot yourself. So in doing all of this, you would agree with me that some of these things putting together for scholarship applications, for grants or studentships, time is very, very essential, because building up this process or this profile takes some time. Sometimes it could take you 2 or 3 years or 1 year, because you won't just have all this experience, all this research or work experience just like that. You're building on them gradually. So utility, deriving maximum advantage or satisfaction from whatever you're doing. So what you're doing presently, how does that add to your CV? Can you say anything about it in any application you're making? The kind of work experience you have now where you're working, is it so relevant? What are the advantages that you think it will add to your application? Very, very important. Then what are the activities you are involved in, even as an undergraduate? For those of us who are for those in Nigeria, the universities were on strike for 9 to 10 months. What have you been doing for those 9 to 10 months? You can't just write it in your essay that, yeah, schools were shut down and you were at home. That's pointless. You want to state that though you had schools were shut down and you were unable to continue your studies at this period in time, this is what you were doing. You were taking online courses, gaining extra knowledge, doing some computer programming, getting some additional soft skills. These meaningful activities, they are very, very important. There shouldn't be time cap that has no eventful activity or that has no meaningful activity for your plans at any point in time. And also realize that there's time for everything. Like I used to say, scholarship application periods, it's usually between September, October to December. So if you've been watching movies for 12 hours a day before, you want to control that now, because you need time to write essays, to put in applications, to mail supervisors, to take online courses, to boost your CV. So this time is for scholarship in the real sense, because this is when most scholarships are open. In fact, I learned Chevening Scholarship closed, was it 2 days ago? So Commonwealth, Erasmus Mundus Joint Master Degree is open now. Most scholarships in Cambridge, they're open now. So this is the time to put in the applications. Discipline is quite important. Without discipline, you can't apply for scholarships. Let me just put it like that. Then without dedication, it's even much more difficult because applying for a scholarship, it's a very, very long and tedious task itself because you have to read your essay, correct it, send it for reviews, get additional opinions, talk to scholars in the programs, prepare for interviews, read supervisor's profile, prepare your CV. You have to be dedicated in doing all these things. No one, absolutely no one will do these things for you. You alone have to do these things yourself. Then consistency is very important because while applying, we all should know this, that while applying, you may not get a yes on time. You could get several rejection emails. And there is a way they package it so heartbreaking that we regret to inform you we had better candidates. These things are bound to happen. That doesn't necessarily mean that you will never win a scholarship. No, it just means that you still need to keep pushing and improving on yourself. So it's until you get a yes that you stop. Once you haven't gotten a yes, you have no reason to stop. You could take a break. Yeah, the process could be mentally demanding itself. You can also take a break from these applications and re-strategize, take advice, take opinions. What is it that you're not doing well? So take a break, but you must keep pushing. In fact, that's the only way you can get a yes in your applications. So I just this is just like a circle that sort of works well. Attend events, conferences, workshops, trainings. Some of them are paid, but sometimes it is in these conferences or workshops that you could even understand in more clear terms the particular field you're interested in, or be able to put in one or two resources together in your application. Then being involved in community development services itself is very important. Like, what are you doing in your environment? What are you doing in your community? Are you impacting? What contribution do you have? Networking is also important. You need to work with people who also have similar ambitions, just as you. It helps a lot. There is one man mopo, or how do they put it? Just like a single man's effort or one man's journey may not be ideal for scholarship applications. So you should have friends who are putting in applications together, so you get to advise or encourage one another. So it is through this networking that you could even get some additional insight about your professional or your career foundation, because you could get some opportunities to volunteer in some places. And doing all this, you are building up a strong and relevant profile. And as you're building profile, you still keep attending these events or conferences. And sometimes this body, Education USA, in Lagos and Abuja, they have offices, they hold events. So if you're applying for graduate school in USA, it's good if you can attend some of their events, because you get to speak with graduate program coordinators from universities in the USA, and you get to understand some of the criteria, some of the things they look for in applications. So you don't just sit at home, you go out, attend events, community services, and all those things. Very, very important. So I'll just state in the next slide one or two examples of volunteering. So basically, it's an act of demonstrating or giving back to the society in simple terms. And sometimes we make this mistake of thinking, I don't have anything, I don't have the money, I don't have any resources. I don't have the connection. How do I volunteer? What can I do? How can I make a change in my community? So I will just give an example. So World AIDS Day celebration, it's an annual event celebrated 1st of December every year. So it's been celebrated annually. So this is an example for my own field, because I studied microbiology. I have interest in infectious diseases, treatments, and diagnosis. World AIDS Day for HIV. So it's an opportunity in joining people worldwide to unite in the fight against HIV, to also show support for people living with HIV, and to commemorate those who have died or who have lost loved ones from AIDS-related illnesses. So doesn't really have to do with HIV alone, but some infectious diseases or some illnesses that affect people living with HIV as well, such as tuberculosis or some form of cancer. So the 1st of December every year, it's marked as a day to celebrate this. So I haven't thought of this in December 2020, 1st of December 2020, no, 2019, yes. I was in Lagos then, and what did I do? I networked with fellow health workers in my community, nurses, counselors, and the hospital where I worked. I informed them that, okay, there is World AIDS Day coming up. I want to do free HIV screening for people in my community. How does that sound? They were like, oh, that's great. Yeah, we should test people for HIV. So the clinic where I worked, they provided all the kits I needed. I didn't even have to pay £1 for anything because it's free screening, and there is an NGO in charge of HIV in Nigeria that provides free screening kits. So they provided this for me. I contacted nurses or health workers. We came together, we worked, and these are just one or two of the pictures. So in the community, then we tested 100 people, and I coordinated the screening. So having that, it's like a very, very big point in my CV or any personal statements I'm writing, because I've clearly shown that even while struggling or while I haven't even gotten an opportunity yet, I'm already giving back to my community. And this is what most scholarship bodies want to see. So they are very sure that once they invest in you by sponsoring your studies, you will be able to give back to your local community or your society. So this is an example. Another example is a campaign against drug abuse, identifying drug abuse in communities. Youths are involved in drug abuse now, and it sort of creates a lot of problem. So my friends and I, 3 of us, we identified it as a problem that, let me just adjust this pointer. Yeah, that 10 seconds people die from alcohol-related causes, disease, traffic, crashes, and violence. Not only that, there are low access to rehabilitation centers in Nigeria. There's increase in drug use, and you would be surprised by the kind of psychoactive substances that youth take. Even in this part of the world or in different parts of the world, it's a common problem. So we identified it. Unemployment is rising. Teenagers do drugs. It causes family conflicts. We identified this problem. Then we came about with a campaign against drug abuse in Nigeria. So this is my friend here, Samuel Ogunshola. He came up with the idea. So 2 of us, myself and one other person with Samuel, we worked on the project. And we visited schools in different parts of the country. We only used social media. We just announced it on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook that we are coordinating a campaign against drug abuse in Nigeria. If you're interested, just say hi or drop a message. And we had lots of volunteers. We had about 500 volunteers who indicated interest to join this. These were just young people like you and I, and they were in different states. So all of them, we never even met face to face. We just disseminate the information that, okay, if you would like to campaign in Delta State or in Anambra State or in Oyo State, just message us and take pictures and send to us, then we document them. So we did this online and offline campaign awareness, orientation programs. We use social media. We visited schools. We did campaigns on the streets. We did this consistently for 365 days. It's quite difficult, long and tedious, but because of the fact that we had almost 500 volunteers, it was easy for us to do. And we were able to document this in a publication. We published an article on it. The campaign director itself, that's my friend Samuel, he got an award in London. He traveled to London for a Young World program. So, these things boosted our profile. It was in my CV, in my applications that I'm already giving back to my community. So these are fantastic opportunities that we leveraged upon. So you could also do this. You could reach out to people or some of your friends who are interested in applying for position scholarships or studentships and create innovative solutions. And some of us are already doing it. And then that's quite impressive as well. You also need mentors. You can't work alone. So when I was, these are my friends. Okay, so this is Samuel, the guy who coordinated the campaign. Then this is Sheil. So Samuel reached out to me as a mentor, even while I was still in Lagos, while I was still applying for scholarship. I graduated before him, so he saw that, okay, I was already making moves, and he reached out to me that I should put him through So we talked together, and he said, okay, this is a problem he has identified that we should work on the problem. So that's how we worked on the campaign against drug abuse. And today, Samuel is in Canada doing his PhD. Sherwin is in USA doing his PhD. And I'm in UK. Yeah. Then you also need to network. You need to move with people who has a similar interest and ambition. So these three of us, myself, this is Chris, this is Victor. We did all these things together. I'm just showing these pictures to emphasize why it is important for you to network and have mentors. And we put in applications together. We follow up on each other. When one person is about to give up, or when one person is discouraged, there is always someone to encourage and to give the sort of fresh idea and motivation. And then Chris is in Poland, Victor is in USA now. So you need to make use of social media. Twitter is a very, very big, like I'm emphasizing, it's a very, very big space. In fact, some supervisors are advertising their positions on Twitter. I'm interested in taking a PhD student to work on epigenetics, environmental science, and they'll put their email that contact me. That's just how they will advertise projects. So you being on Twitter gives you access to this information. Then for LinkedIn, professionally, you could get opportunities to volunteer, to get advice, or to apply for positions. Facebook to connect with people as well. In fact, it's just like, what are you doing with this social media? One of the persons who reviewed my essays when I was applying to Cambridge, I met him on Facebook. The other person who reviewed my essay also, I met her on LinkedIn. So what are you doing with this social media are very important, and you could maximize them as your own resources to get to where you want to get to, or the kind of program you're interested in applying in. Scholarship application, studentship, or grants application, it's a long and tedious process, but you need all of these resources to get to, or to win what you really want to get. So I think that is all for now. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take questions. Yeah, is there any question?
Please, I have a question.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, I didn't see the link to join this group earlier, the meeting earlier. So my question is about, like, when you talk about volunteering service. So someone like me now that maybe I'm in computing field, so it's hardly for me to see that kind of programs, maybe to volunteer for. So I don't know, maybe you actually have idea of that, or anything you can tell me about that, sir?
Okay, yeah, that's a very, very important question. So it's not compulsory you volunteer in that computing field. In fact, there is a foundation in Lagos about cancer screening and treatments. The person who created the foundation, she is a chemical engineering student. She got a scholarship for chemical engineering, but she claimed that she's passionate about cancer treatment and diagnosis in Nigeria. So she created a foundation where she volunteered actively as the founder. Cancer chemical engineer. So it's not compulsory, it's in your field, but it's good if it's in your field. And for someone like computer science, you could just put it online. Volunteering services for computer scientists in Nigeria. Trust me, in Google you get a lot of answers. It may not even be in Nigeria, it may be in West Africa, and all you will be asked to do is just to devote 2 or 3 hours weekly and join campaign online, or do some coding lectures, or mentor some teenagers on coding programs online. That's just one of it. But on LinkedIn, you will get some ideas, and you could just message me. I could suggest 1 or 2 things that you could volunteer on. Yeah. Another question from Adiola Okwade.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. Please, I want to ask if I want to change my field of study, and I've done my degree, like I want to do my master's in another field. What am I going to do? Like, what was the process I'm going to take?
So that's another field. How closely related is it to your first degree, or is it totally different from your first degree?
Totally different. For example, I study metallurgical material. So, and I want to switch to computing, to computer engineering.
Yes, I think it's not totally different, but yeah, I understand. If you have work experience in computer engineering, that's a good place to start from. And taking online courses too sort of prompts this knowledge acquisition idea in you that yes, you're interested. Not only are you just switching, but you've been having some interest and been learning about computer engineering. So I think it's a process that you have to build up with time, and you have to carefully narrate it in your CV. That even though you had your first degree in metallurgical and material engineering, after that you yeah. So after that, you did some kind of voluntary activities, or you did your internship in a computer engineering firm. Then you took some online courses, and then this is one of the reasons, stating a clear reason with it that you want to switch. Though it's quite tricky, but it's possible as far as it's still engineering. You just have to take time to work towards that. Yeah, it's possible. But in terms of getting a scholarship for that, you have to provide strong and relevant reasons as to why you want to do a different course. But it's possible as far as you have your reasons. Yeah, you can. Yeah, what do you say?
I said, okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for the question. So another question from Donu Barry. I'm so sorry if I did not pronounce your name very well.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two questions. My first question is, when can one start applying after school? You know, the way our calendar is, these federal universities, they are just, you can have your final first semester, then they will now go on strike like 8 months like this. And then, so when can one after school plus the NYC thing, start preparing to apply for these scholarships? And then the second one, you said something about internship. And this internship, most times, they just last 1 year, some 6 months, some 12 months, some 9 months. But now I'm asking, there are some programs in my field now, engineering. There are some programs that they call it graduate program. They span for like 3 years. And then they have these rotations and all that. So does that count as, work experience, or is just you can also count to as internship or something like that? That's of course for applying for the master's or PhD.
Yeah, so to answer the first question, when to start applying? Yeah, it's a very tricky question because sometimes you are not definitely sure, you're not very sure when you would finish your study. I mean, considering the just concluded ASU strike in Nigeria. But with the situation of things, once you are about to resume your ultimate year, you should start. And interestingly, scholarship application is not just something that you are ready to apply tomorrow and you just apply tomorrow. No, if you are ready to apply tomorrow, you must have started working towards it since last year. How? You must have started contacting supervisors in some cases. Yeah. You must have started reading about program descriptions. I mean, that's the start of the application itself. You must have started working on your CV. You must have started gathering your documents. Like I said, to get international passport, sometimes it will take, from Nigeria, it will take 3 or 4 months. So you must have started preparing that. So once you are in your penultimate year, start gathering your documents. So once you finish your degree, you can apply. Then in terms of NYSC, NYSC is not a criteria for scholarship application. It's only compulsory if what you're applying for has to do with a scholarship sponsored by the Federal Ministry of Health or the Federal Government of Nigeria. But you see all these other scholarships, this common scholarship, Chevening, Commonwealth, Erasmus, you don't need NYSC. So some people, I'm not advising you to skip NYSC, but I'm not saying some people don't do NYSC and they just get their scholarship and travel out. Yeah, in terms of internship, work experience, and the graduate program itself. Now, this is why internship is good, but some people don't do internship. They just get the scholarship and travel and travel and resume for the graduate study. But internship sort of helps to improve your CV. So, for instance, I graduated in 2017. I got my scholarship in 2020. That was after 3 years. So what would I have written in my CV that I've been doing for 3 years after my first degree? A gap is not really advisable in the CV. So I had this work experience. I had internship and I was working as a clinical scientist in Lagos. But that doesn't really mean that I've done some aspects of my graduate study. It just means that I have gathered relevant experience, which would help me in the program itself. So it sort of had to my profile and it sort of give me a hedge in terms of my applications. Have I answered the second question correctly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Is there any other question?
I think Abel is.
Oh, yeah, so I'm so sorry. Abel, yeah, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir. Thank you for the lecture so far. One aspect that caught my attention was the conferences you mentioned that they help in the process, in the application process. So I want to please expatiate a bit about how attending conferences, attending conferences and things like that, how they come in the application, how do they boost one's chances of getting a postgraduate scholar? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. I really appreciate that. So in terms of conferences, if that conference is related to your field, that's the first thing. So for instance, what did you study or what are you studying, if I may ask? I just want to provide practical examples to answer the question.
Okay. Yes, I'm studying chemical engineering.
Okay, chemical engineering. Have you heard of NAPI conference, if I'm right? SPE, is it SPE or NAPI conference?
It's SPE. I've attended SPE conferences before.
So with SPE conferences, they are usually professionals and some come to give lectures, if I'm right.
Yes.
Some from ExxonMobil or NNPC or Schlumberger, yeah?
Yes,
in the oil industry.
Yes.
So, and as a chemical engineer, there's an aspect you are particularly interested in. Chemical engineer could have a broad field. So there's an aspect you're interested in. It could be oil wastes or all these seismic something. Sorry, I'm not a chemical engineer, but there's an aspect you're interested in. And in these conferences, there are usually talks or there are topics to be given. And once you attend these conferences, you get access to some materials. You get access to be a registered member of other international bodies as a student. Some of them are free. Then having this accesses, you get relevant, up-to-date information about what's happening in the field itself. So those information are particularly key for you because you are having extra knowledge to demonstrate in your applications. Meeting professionals are very important because you would want to, as a chemical engineer, in fact, some scholarships will ask you that what work experience do you have? So as a chemical engineer who has networked with a lot of professionals in your field via these conferences, you could get opportunity to meet and do an internship in one or two of these industries. In fact, most of my friends who studied chemical engineering that are on scholarships now, they usually attend, they don't joke with these SP conferences, they usually attend regularly and they meet a lot of mentors in these fields and they get opportunity to do internship even after graduation in these companies. So most of these opportunities, they wouldn't have gotten them if they don't attend these conferences. So the conference is not really like a composite criteria for your scholarship, but it gives you the opportunity to build a strong and relevant profile in applying for graduate programs or scholarships. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir. You did justice to the question. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Do you have any other question?
Any other question? Okay, if there's no other question, I guess we have to call it a day. Thank you so much for honoring the invite. We appreciate you, our guests. This is a great moment. Lots of insight has been shared, lots of information, lots of knowledge, and we truly appreciate you for doing this. And I hope that everyone is going to use it to the best of their ability. All right, so I want to say a very good night to everyone, and till some other time, we'll see again. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you, our guests. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah,
really
thank you.
appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.